Let's get to Canberra now. Andrew Clennell, our political editor, is standing by for us. Andrew, good to see you. What's happening there this week?
Well, so much, whether it's Barnaby falling in the gutter or the right to disconnect or more chat about tax cuts and negative gearing. Let's start with Sunday Agenda yesterday, Laura, and Peter Dutton confirming to me that should they win office, they will campaign against and overturn this right to disconnect legislation for employees. This right to disconnect legislation, is that something you'll go to the election promising to overturn?
Yes, we will.
Do you intend to go to the election with an IR policy reversing many of these Labor changes? I'm talking about the policy around casuals, around multi-employer bargaining, etc.
If you think it's okay to outsource your industrial relations or your economic policy to the Greens, which is what the Prime Minister's doing, then we are going to see a continuation of the productivity problem in our country.
Now, there's no doubt right to disconnect will be very popular, Laura. I mean, there are more workers than bosses in this country. But I'll tell you what, making every Friday a public holiday would be popular as well. It all comes down to productivity and whether or not this thing is practical. And I can't see how it can practically work. It sounds like it will clog up the Fair Work Commission. And if it doesn't, it will mean businesses are more reticent about contacting their employees, which will hurt productivity and hurt the economy. Let's see, though. The unions, they pretty much have a wish list of this government so far. And again, most of those measures are popular. But where does that leave us economically as a country at a time the Treasurer is calling for more productivity? Well, the other big talking point yesterday on the show was negative gearing. And the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, I had to ask him about it because his Treasury head had told a parliamentary committee on Friday that he and Jim Chalmers had discussed changes to negative gearing. Jim Chalmers is saying in relation to this, well, I talk about everything with him. I mean, all Treasurers do. I don't think anyone doubts that Jim Chalmers wants to change this. I do think the easiest change, if you're going to do this, is just to say you can only negatively gear 1 or 2 properties per person. Why are people allowed to claim a deduction on 20 or 30 after all? But any other changes, well, they're just going to be too unpopular. That's why they don't want to touch it. Jim Chalmers is always looking for extra revenue, but he seemed to really kick this one into touch yesterday. Would you like to make changes to negative gearing?
No, that's not something that we're proposing, not something that we are considering, not something that we are working up. We've got, I think, a very broad and very ambitious housing agenda, and we've got a pretty full book when it comes to tax reform, and our focus is on legislating that.
What about trust? Are you going to look at trust?
No, that's, again, fits into the same category as the others, Andrew. That's not something we've been working up or considering. Our focus has been on these cost of living tax cuts for Middle Australia.
OK, let's talk about Barnaby Joyce. Obviously, there's a lot of concern for him. I spoke to David Littleproud about him this morning, and the leader of the Nationals said Barnaby will keep his job. They're giving him the support he needs, and he's fine.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? He clearly had too much to drink, but he was on medication as well. Look, let me call a shovel a spade, which is most unusual for me, Laura. Barnaby Joyce wants to get rid of David Littleproud, and David Littleproud wants to get rid of Barnaby Joyce. And here's an opportunity for him, but it doesn't look like he'll take it. Would Barnaby Joyce stir more trouble if he wasn't on the front bench? Would he make a victim and a martyr of himself? Or is it just not the right time for a coalition reshuffle? Anyway, it is embarrassing for the coalition. One senior Labor source said to me on the weekend that if a cabinet minister did this, their feet wouldn't touch the ground before Anthony Albanese sacked them. But Barnaby Joyce is arguing, look, I shouldn't have drunk with the medication, but I was on this medication. Let's hear me questioning Peter Dutton, who says he's going to talk to Barnaby Joyce yesterday. Look, I may as well rip off the Band-Aid here. Is Barnaby Joyce going to remain on the front bench after this incident, or should he remain on the front bench? He's in Veterans Affairs.
I only know what I've read in the paper. It's pretty rough when people are walking past somebody who might be in need of support. I understand that a chalk mark has been drawn on the footpath. Could only happen in Canberra where all those Greens and Labor staffers are, but I'll have a chat to Barnaby this week, and as you said, David Littleproud's spoken with Barnaby and he's going to speak with him as well this week.
All right, there was speculation on the weekend Barnaby Joyce might take some leave. That doesn't appear the case because he's been on Sunrise this morning to argue his case. He's missing the party room meeting for the Nationals, which is occurring right now. But David Littleproud has told you, Laura, that he's going to be here later in the week. Here was Barnaby Joyce this morning.
I'm not looking for sympathy and I'm not looking for an excuse. I'll just stand by that. What I said is what I said. I came back, I sat on a planter box, I fell off and I was videotaped. There you go. What else can you say?
Yeah, in fact, both Barnaby and David have told me that he might even be back in Canberra by as early as this afternoon, so we'll wait to see. Just on negative gearing, it was interesting to talk to the Greens this morning. The Greens are now using Labor's own argument against them.
Yes, well, it is interesting. I mean, talk about a party without consequence that goes for popular policies. While that grab was playing, Laura, someone from the Greens has just sent me their policy, which is a 4-day work week. So I was just saying to you, it'd also be popular if no one worked Friday. That is the Greens' policy. So their policy is also to do something about negative gearing and to lower rents, which is a sort of a state thing, and any other popular thing you can imagine. They're going to get an increased vote, I reckon, at the election with this sort of stuff, including and especially with younger voters. And it must be a source of frustration for Labor, who have to actually govern. And they see the Greens pushing these policies towards their constituency. Now, a change in negative gearing is unpopular across the board, but I would imagine it's popular with young people who are fed up with ridiculous house prices and ridiculous rents, particularly in your hometown, Laura.
Yeah, they might even be a little bit fed up with the hypocrisy of a lot of the Greens, a lot of Labor backbenchers actually holding a number of negatively geared properties. So we'll see how this debate goes. It always tends to get a little personal on this one. Andrew, enjoy your week. We'll see you soon.